You've heard the stories. The Porsche Boxster is a poor man's 911. It's unreliable. It's impractical. It's underpowered. Well, today we're putting those myths to rest because trust me, most of what you've heard is flat out wrong. I'm Derek, and today on 11 After 9, your new favorite Porsche YouTube channel, we're breaking down 15 myths on the Porsche Boxster that you may have heard. We're talking facts and first-hand experience to get the record. 11 After 9 is a brand new YouTube channel, and we want to put out honest and informative content for you to enjoy. If I could ask, please hit that subscribe button below, because the bigger the 11 After 9 audience I can grow, the less time I'll have to spend on weekends around the house doing chores, and the more time I can be driving, filming, interviewing, and reviewing cars that you out there might want to buy. One last thing to say before we dive into the list, and that is essentially to save me getting burned in the comments as being a Boxster purist and not a 911 purist. I just want to make it clear. I'm not a Boxster guy. I'm not a 911 guy. I'm a Porsche guy. And I just want to come at it from that because I have a 911 in the garage right now sitting next to my Boxster. I also have a Porsche Cayenne. And over time, I've owned or driven almost every model that Porsche has put out. I've owned 911s for almost every generation. I've owned Boxsters from almost every generation. I've owned water-cooled. I've owned air-cooled. I've owned what they call the transaxle cars, 924s and 944s. Heck, I've owned a 914 with a race car engine. That's a completely different story. But all this to say is I love the Marquis, and I find something really interesting that I really fall in love with almost every model. And so in this video, because I have a 981, I might sound like I'm defending the 981. I'm not. What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to point out that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about this car and Boxsters in general. And I want everyone to understand that it is an amazing car in its own right. And really, we're doing it a disservice by comparing it to any other model in the Porsche lineup. With that being said, let's dive right in and start busting some myths. So myth number one, the first myth we're going to tackle is maybe the biggest one. And this is the Porsche 981 Boxster is just a toned down 911. It's a car that lacks power and just pales in comparison to its bigger brother, the Porsche 911. There's so many ways to come at this. Fundamentally, the Porsche is just a completely different car than the 911. Its mid-engine layout offers distinctive handling characteristics that its older brother, the 911, just doesn't have. First and foremost, I'd say that the unique engineering really sets the two cars apart. I mean, think about it. You have a rear-engine car and you have a mid-engine car in the Boxster. I shouldn't use the term older brother when I refer to the 911 because they're fundamentally very different cars. If you look at almost every supercar out there, they are all mid-engine. And as a matter of fact, the 911 has been increasingly moving its motor more to the center of the car over the last 60 years. And there's a reason for that. I think the next thing we should talk about is the chassis of the 981. It is a fantastic platform for very spirited driving both on and off the track. In fact, the 981 offers a 40% stiffer suspension than the outgoing model. And so this car is an extremely planted and fun vehicle to drive on the back roads. The thing to remember, this car is very light, roughly 2,900 pounds. And I know people get wrapped up when they talk about a detuned engine. It's a detuned 911 engine, and therefore somehow it's that much less. Listen, I have a base Boxster. I think it does 0 to 60 in 5.5, 5.7 seconds, which is really fast, and it's a lot of fun. But when you jump to the S, you're doing 0 to 60 with a PDK in 4.5 seconds. And if you shell out the money for a GTS, you're in the 4.1 second range, 0 to 60 for a Boxster. And so I think it's really doing a disservice when you talk about the Boxster being a less powerful kind of toned down version of the 911. Okay, moving on to myth number two. The Boxster is unreliable. I've heard this a number of times, and I think it might harken back to the first generation Boxster, the 986, and frankly its 911 counterpart, the 996, because of some of the issues that swirl around it due to the IMS bearing and other failures or design flaws with the motor. So I think overall the Boxster got this bad rap for being a less expensive car that somehow is less reliable than some of the other cars in the brand. Now, while I can't defend the 986 reliability, though I think we can all agree that a lot of the complaints are far overblown, a lot of the issues were rectified in the 987, and then the 987.2. And then when those motors received direct fuel injection, the old architecture of the 986 Boxster motor was no more. And so moving into the 981, it is considered to be an extremely reliable motor. I think the key thing to understand here is that it's all about maintenance. A lot of people tend to drive these cars really hard and put them away wet, or conversely, they'll park these cars and they'll let them sit for long periods of time. Both of these things don't do the car any justice. And now I'm not saying you can't drive a Boxster hard. That's not it at all. But it's very important to keep up on the maintenance items. You're not necessarily worried about the car giving up the ghost on the road. Some of the biggest issues with a 981 are regarding the door panels might delaminate or slightly pull away from the door frame. Or you might have a washer nozzle hose that cracks because you open the frunk up and down in cold weather. I mean, these are the extent of some of the major issues with the car. Now, I can't claim to say that every car is going to be problem-free, but by and large, the 991, the 911, and the 981, the Boxster generation, is considered to be one of the most reliable generations Porsche had put out. That leads us right into myth number 3. It is expensive to maintain these cars. Hey everyone, it's a Porsche. It is a high-end sports car. It is expensive to maintain any of these cars, whether it's a Porsche, a Mercedes, a McLaren, even the high-end BMWs. Last I checked, the labor rate at a Porsche dealer was right around $250 an hour, and I think in some locales it might even be higher. But if you look at a Mercedes dealer or a BMW dealer, it's right up there. And so while some people might say it's expensive to maintain these cars, I don't think anyone can say it's more expensive to maintain these cars. But I will say this, Porsche 981s are approaching 9 to 13 years old, and so these cars will need maintenance, and they will need some things that are replaced, maybe proactively. But from a hardware standpoint, the engineering is sound, and I think that they're actually really approachable. And so I think for a lot of these cars, if you have a set of jack stands, or gosh, if you have a lift in your garage, you might be able to do a fair amount of work yourself. Now listen, the oil changes are one thing. You're switching over tires in the spring and summer are another. But with these cars, you can access the spark plugs, but just by taking off the rear tires. You can do a lot of routine maintenance, air filters, coil packs. These are all things you can do to the car and save yourself dealer costs. And so if it's under warranty or it's CPO, take it to the dealer. Let them work on it. But I would honestly suggest that you think about trying to do a fair amount of work yourself because, again, these cars are so approachable. Myth number 4, the Boxster has a harsh ride. Now, I said a few minutes ago that it has a 40% stiffer chassis than the outgoing model. And so that means it is much more direct, and from a steering standpoint, it really hugs the road. These cars can come with PASM, which is Porsche Active Suspension Management. And so you can actually change the tone of the suspension depending on road conditions. And so driving around in a normal setting in PASM is actually very comfortable. If you do engage the sport function, it does get tied down and it gets very stiff. But if you're in New Hampshire and you're driving down pothole-ridden roads or roads with huge expansion joints, yeah, it's going to be a stiff ride. You're going to be jostling over these things. If you are expecting to take these cars off-road, then get a Cayenne. But outside of that, if you're going to be taking it down B roads or C roads, the suspension is completely fine. And as a matter of fact, my base Boxster does not have PASM. It just has the factory suspension, and I have found no issues at all with it. It's been very comfortable, and going over manhole covers, going over cracks in the road, I haven't had any issues at all. I actually think it's extremely smooth. And so it's not a race car type of drive. When you get into the GTS, when you get into the Boxster Spider, those suspensions are a little bit more tuned for performance, and so you might notice a stiffer ride. But when you're talking about the grand number of bases and S's, not to worry, the suspension's perfect. Myth number 5, the Boxster lacks storage space. Folks, this car has 2 trunks. Now, you can make the argument that in the cabin, you don't have any place to put things behind the seats. I'll grant you that. But you do have storage underneath the armrest, you do have a glove compartment, you do have storage in the doors. So I think it offers adequate room to have a purse, to have sunglasses, to have your wallet, to have your phone, to have your keys. What else do you really need? It's the front that really blows me away. It is cavernous for a car this small. You can put a few small suitcases in there with absolutely no issue. And if you're creative and you were really good at Tetris when you were younger, you can get a surprising amount of stuff in the front trunk. It's deep. Now in the rear trunk, it's not quite so deep, but you can certainly get a couple backpacks, you can get a business valise, you can put a couple duffel bags, there's plenty of room. I've routinely taken this to the grocery store and I have put a full cart of groceries in this car with zero issues and plenty of room left over with nothing coming into the main cabin. Moving on, myth number 6. The Boxster's convertible top is prone to leaks and mechanical issues. While no mechanical system is completely free of issues, in the research I've done, the Porsche 981 Boxster has a surprisingly small amount of issues with its top. There are wear-out parts for sure, but in general, having a top that can go up and down in roughly 9 seconds at a speed of up to, say, 32 miles an hour is an incredible engineering feat. And for that feat, there are a surprisingly small amount of issues with the top. I think a lot of it comes down to maintenance. And this is more than just keeping the top clean of debris. It's very important to make sure that the moving parts are lubricated with the correct Porsche lubricant. The other thing I'll mention is that the drains in the Boxster do get clogged up from time to time. And a lot of people think that the top is leaking when in fact the rain drains in the Boxster get clogged up and that water goes into the cabin. When it goes into the cabin, unfortunately, that water does end up on the floor where a lot of expensive electronics are, especially under the passenger seat. And so it's a great rule of thumb anytime you buy a car, even a Boxster, to check those drains. Go online, find the instructions of where they are and how to clean them. You'll be doing yourself a huge favor because you'll just take one more variable out of the equation. I wash my Boxster in the driveway all the time. I use a pressure washer. I use it on the top with no issues. There's no water ingress into the cabin at all. And so I would say that it is not only watertight, but it is very durable. Myth number 7, Boxsters are not for tall drivers. Well, I guess it depends on how tall you are. Also, do you have longer legs with a shorter torso or shorter legs with a longer torso? I have a few friends that are 6'2", that own Boxsters and have absolutely no issues. The seats go back up against the firewall, and for folks with longer legs, generally there's no issues. If you have a really long torso, or you're over, say, 6'2", 6'3", it might be a concern just for the fact that the seat can only go so low and your eyes might be at the level of the windscreen frame. It's in those cases that I might recommend that someone look at a 911, because 911s obviously have a back seat. You can pull the back seat back very far and very low to the ground. That said, the majority of the population, despite how tall you are, can get in and enjoy driving in a Boxster 981. Myth number 8. The Boxster does not perform well in colder climates. Well, I think I'm uniquely suited to talk about this since I live in New Hampshire. I had my Boxster out this week in 45, 50 degree weather. Right now, outside my window as I record this, it is doing a dance of icy rain and snow. And so I think I can say with 100% confidence that it is cold weather. You can drive a Boxster in the spring, the summer, and the fall, and in New England at least, what we call the shoulder seasons, which is kind of pre-spring, fake spring, and pre-winter, which is late fall. I think the biggest thing that you really have to consider is the tires. The tire compound is very reactive to temperatures, and the summer tires that come on a lot of Boxsters really don't perform very well below 50 degrees, 45 degrees or so. Now you can get all-season tires, which will fit a Boxster, which will give you a higher amount of traction at those temperatures. But I know some people that really push driving their Boxsters or Caymans deep into the winter that will put snows on them. And because of the quality of the rust proofing of these cars and the commitment to washing them every couple days, I do know other people that drive them straight through the winter. I wouldn't call them snow machines, absolutely not. But what I would say is that if you have dry winter days and clear roads, these cars are fantastic. Are you going to be putting the Boxster top down when the temperature is 15 degrees? Well, if you're little nuts like me, yeah, maybe. But you have heated seats, oftentimes you have heated steering wheels, you have the heat blasting, the windows up, you're good to go. But even with the top up, the car performs brilliantly in the winter. If you live in a state that doesn't put sodium chloride or other kind of harsh chemicals to melt the snow on the roads, you can drive this car all year round. Myth number 9. The 981 Boxster is not fuel efficient. Well, I might not be able to argue that because it really depends on how you drive it, of course. With the sport button down and with a heavy right foot, your mileage per gallon might tend to go down. But that being said, in optimal conditions, these cars are extremely fuel efficient. The 2.7-liter engine that I have with a PDK transmission is rated for 22 city and 32 miles per gallon highway, which is incredibly impressive. Now, admittedly, with the sport button on and carrying the gears up to almost redline, I find my miles per gallon more in the 15 to 16 range. Myth number 10. The Boxster's infotainment system is outdated and lacks modern features. The youngest of these cars are almost a decade old, and so technology marches on. If you're expecting heads-up displays in the windshield and 3D representations on the GPS maps, you might have to look elsewhere. I find that the Bluetooth in these cars is adequate. If you get the Bose option in the cars, the sound is actually incredible. And overall, the PCM systems, which stands for Porsche Communication Management, are entirely usable in these cars, absolutely. With navigation, the maps do look dated, and the fidelity of the screens isn't what modern cars are. You can use this car every day. You can use your phone in the car every day without an issue. If it really bothers you, there are many companies that offer a circuit board that can be installed on the back side of the PCM that can give updated Bluetooth capabilities as well as Apple CarPlay. And so you definitely have options. The third option, which is an option I don't really like, but unfortunately my car has, is a third-party system that completely replaces the PCM and gives you all of the modern conveniences in a plug-and-play package. Myth number 11. The Porsche Boxster 981 is not suitable for track use. Are you kidding me? The 981 has a lightweight chassis, mid-engine balance, extremely responsive steering, all of which completely contribute to an amazing track-focused car. Now on the track, they're not going to let you bust around with the top down. You'll have to get over that. This car is an absolute beast. And if you're looking in the higher horsepower models, you can put down some very respectable lap times. With the PASM, the PASM that we talked about earlier, when you can manage the suspension, or the Sport Chrono package, you have a lap timer, you have Sport and Sport Plus modes. This car is a fantastic track weapon. Myth number 12. The 981 Boxster is not good for long-distance driving. Wrong. I picked up this car 4 hours away and drove it home and hopped out of it feeling absolutely refreshed. I know many people that road trip these cars. There was a gentleman on my comments this week that said that he drives his Boxster 981 30,000 miles a year. If that doesn't tell you that this car is fantastic to be in all day long, you're crazy. The seats are super comfortable. The steering setup and ergonomics of the cabin are conducive to comfortable driving. It's peppy. You have cruise control. You have cup holders that pop out of the dash. The only thing that I will say when it comes to driving on the highway is you have very wide tires. And so there does tend to be a hum. I know that this is completely dependent on tire architecture and tire compound. And so some all seasons might be quieter than others, but the more sport-oriented tires definitely make a little bit more noise on the highway, but gives you the opportunity to crank up that stereo and listen to some tunes as you burn the miles. Okay, myth number 13. The Porsche 981 steering is unresponsive and lacks feedback. The 981 Boxster did introduce electric power-assisted steering, or what they call EPAS. It's been praised for its accuracy and responsiveness, but it's also been panned a little bit because it's taken a lot of that fine-tuned feedback that the hydraulic system used to have and kind of flattened it out. So whereas a lot of people bemoan the fact that they can't feel every single crack in the pavement as they drive, that steering has been traded for a system that doesn't jump out of your hands if you hit ruts in the road and generally provides a very tight, concise, and responsive steering package. But here's the thing. Some of the eagle-eyed folks on this channel have let me know that you can actually change the steering on a 981. I did some research into it, and they were completely right. By going to someone that has the PWIS system, which is the Porsche coding system that talks to the car, you can change a lot of parameters about the car. You can change some of these coding calibrations from a normal base Boxster steering feel to that of a GT3 or even a GT3 RS. How much steering feel that gives you back, I'm not sure because I haven't done it yet, but you can be sure that I'm going to be looking into this, because what an amazing time we live in when you can literally go download a new steering system for your car without turning any bolts or banging your knuckles. Moving on with 2 more to go. Myth number 14, the Porsche 981 has limited visibility when the top is up. All right, you got me, guys. I can't debunk this. The vision stinks. Blind spots are real. When the top is up, you do have a significant area in your rear quarters that you just can't see. And the rear window, though a pretty good size and heated, just doesn't provide a lot of visibility for what's behind the car. What makes it worse is that if you do have kind of the airflow screen that sits between the seats, which is mesh, that makes it that much darker looking out through the back window. And so you really have to rely on your mirrors quite a bit and really kind of crane your neck. Now, this can be combated a little bit by adding a backup camera, which is almost a necessity with these cars if you don't have the ultrasonic parking sensors. I do have to say that the fearmongers out there are correct about this one. But that all goes away when you put the top down. And it's a Boxster, so why is the top up? Problem solved. Okay, we're going to end on a strong one. Myth number 15, the Porsche 981's interior lacks quality and luxury. This is wrong. This is wrong. So listen, when you were able to order a Porsche 981 Boxster new, you had the ability to upgrade the interior in a ton of different ways. And everyone's heard the crazy stories of the a la carte options by Porsche to make the air conditioning vents leather, to make the electrical panel leather. You really could really leather up the interior. Now, this is nothing to say about the color of the leather, which can make or break the interior. But with leather, the interior is a very nice place to be. The car I have doesn't have all those leather packages, and I have to tell you, it is extremely high quality. I had a 991 911 that I sold to buy this car. Between that and this, I really couldn't tell any difference between the two cabins as far as fit and finish. The button clicks feel fantastic. The shifter action is solid and sure. The places where you put your hands are very comfortable, like the top of the doors, the armrests. The seats are very comfortable and compliant and supportive. I have heated seats. I do not have air-conditioned seats, but in other cars I've had air-conditioned seats, which have been fantastic. In my car, the person that spec'd it out decided to put the Sport Design wheel in, which is almost universally the one to pick because the steering wheel isn't cluttered with buttons and you can just focus on the road and really enjoy the drive. Unfortunately, my steering wheel is all black. It doesn't have the silver accents to kind of break it up. And so I think if there is going to be one mod I'm going to do, it's going to be putting on a more modern Porsche steering wheel from the 718. I'll be excited to show you that install along with the unboxing. I'm working with a company that actually was able to find me a steering wheel that is an aftermarket steering wheel but looks like an OEM steering wheel. And so I'd love to be able to share that with you to find out if it's a worthy replacement. We'll expect that video coming. The 981 Boxster interior is a fantastic place to be, and I'd put it on par with a 911 anytime. As we're coming into the spring and the roads are clear of salt here in New Hampshire and in New England, if anyone out there has a really cool Porsche that they would love to see featured on the channel, please reach out by email and let me know. Maybe we can set up a time and we can make an episode on it. It'd be fantastic to showcase some of the amazing cars here in New England, and it would be great to relate to the rest of the world the driving feel of the car because people might be out there looking to buy them. So there you go, 15 myths, well, 14 debunked and 1 confirmed. But you know that I'd always shoot you straight. Thank you all so much for watching this channel and helping me grow it. Once again, if you can, please hit the subscribe button below as we continue to grow this channel and bring you more Porsche content. And until next time, thank you again.